Hey, did you see what Jordan did, folks? Not Michael, the nation, the country. So ISIS burns to death one of Jordan's pilots. So Jordan went to their prison, and they grabbed a couple of al-Qaeda prisoners, and they hanged them. And by the way, that's the right way. It's not correct to say they hung them. That's how you describe somebody's physiology. But you don't say somebody was hung unless you want to talk about the way they look. Really, it hanged is correct. I'm just telling you. If you say that Jordan went in there and hung them, that's not correct. You can look it up. So Jordan hanged a couple of al-Qaeda prisoners that they had in their prison. Now, if I wonder if Obama's worried that's just going to make ISIS madder. It is going to make ISIS even angrier. You know, when don't even hang our prisoners. We just waterboard them. Obama and the liberals run around worried about whether or not we're helping to recruit for ISIS. Anyway, it's amazing. Yesterday, folks, it was vaccines all over the place and how the Republicans hated kids. And not hated, didn't care about kids. The Republicans were opposed to vaccines. That's gone now. Not here, though, because we're going to refute it. We're going to go back. We got a Washington Post story where they talked in the Washington Post about how it was a bunch of liberals who were opposed to mass vaccinations. But isn't it amazing to watch? So yesterday it was all vaccines all the time. Today that's gone. The drive-bys are onto something else. And they're up to ISIS now. And now ISIS is the number one news story of the day. ISIS this, ISIS that. Everywhere you look, ISIS. And then a little bit over here, it's the Republican presidential field. And David Axelrod is just, well, I don't know if the book's published, but he's publishing a memoir about his 40 years in politics. And in his, in the advance release, the tease, Axelrod describes Obama being really irritated at Mitt Romney when Romney called him to concede the election in 2012. Axelrod says that Romney engaged in disguised racism in talking to Obama. You know what that was? Apparently, Romney praised Obama for turning out the vote in places like Cleveland and Milwaukee and other places where the vote's considered to be predominantly black. And Obama was reported to be very irritated that Romney, basically in conceding, insulted. Yeah, you only won because the black vote turned out for you. That's how Axelrod says Obama took it. And it's just, play the race card on Romney now, even after he's decided not to pursue the presidency again in 2016. Great to have you with us today, folks. Rush Limbaugh at 800-282-2882 and the email address lrushbo@eibnet.com. All right, this ISIS stuff. One of the things that I like to do here, it's become somewhat of a pattern. Whenever there is big news of the moment that involves the president, it could be pretty much anybody, I like to go back and time and try to find quotes from people that are at variance from what they are saying at present, just to illustrate the hypocrisy and just to illustrate that maybe we ought not just blanketly trust what people are saying at any given moment, because it'd be interesting to find out what they've said in the past. And I did that with Obama today on both ISIS and Islamism and militant Islamism and so forth. As you know, the regime and the drive-by media are making it clear today that ISIS is not Islamist. They have nothing to do with Islam, in fact. They're just making that up. They're just saying, they just put Islam in their name, and they not in Obama, they're not a state, and they're not Islamic. And, of course, the State Department's modus operandi is to refer to ISIS as extremists in the name of Islam. Because come hell or high water, we're not going to consider these people to be Islamists. And, of course, we have the accompanying audio sound bites today, the drive-by media going out and finding people to concur that, we got a sound bite from CNN, for example. Christiana Amanpour talking to some recently escaped prisoner from ISIS. And she asks him, well, what did they talk about? What did these ISIS guys talk about? And this escaped prisoner says, they never once talked about Islam. They never once talked about Muslims or any of that. So Christiana Amanpour says, see, they have nothing to do with Islam. And every day it's a daily assault on our common sense. Every day they try to insult our intelligence and tell us that what we know isn't so. Whether it's about the economy, whether it's about Obamacare, whether it's about terrorism, whether it's about ISIS, whether it's about militant extremism and whatever it is, every day they try to tell us what we don't know. So I went back, and I have here a Washington Post story from January 27, 2014. It was an interview that Obama gave. And I am not sure, because all I have is excerpts. I'm not sure who conducted the interview. First name was David. This was the time, this is the interview, January 27, 2014. This is when Obama referred to ISIS as the JV team. I mean, just a year ago. Now, here today, ISIS is the worst thing on earth. ISIS is the absolute meanest bunch of guys on earth. ISIS is the most dire, consequential threat we in America face today. And every other free nation in the world, the greatest threat ever is ISIS. Just a year ago, Barack Hussein referred to them as the JV team, January 27, 2014. So here's just the relevant excerpts from this story a year ago. Question, you know where this is going, though. Even in the period that you've been on vacation the last couple of weeks, in Iraq, in Syria, of course, in Africa, Al-Qaeda is resurgent. And it was talking about ISIS, or ISIL, depending on how precise you want to be. And Obama's response was this. Yes, but David, I think the analogy that we use around here sometimes, and I think it's accurate, is if a JV team puts on a Lakers uniform, it doesn't make them Kobe Bryant. I think there's a distinction between the capacity and the reach of a bin Laden and a network that is actively planning major terror plots against the homeland versus a bunch of jihadists who are engaged in various local power struggles and disputes, often sectarian. So just a year ago, ISIS, we're not even supposed to take them seriously. No, this is a JV team. Come on, let's not get all worked up about this. And then whoever is interviewing Obama here, might be David Ignatius, I don't know, he says, Mr. President, that JV team just took over Fallujah. Obama says, I understand that, but when you say took over Fallujah, and the Washington Post reporter says, and I don't know for how long, and now here's the money quote, here's Obama. But let's just keep in mind, Fallujah is a profoundly conservative Sunni city in a country that, independent of anything we do, is deeply divided along sectarian lines. And how we think about terrorism has to be defined and specific enough that it does not lead us to think that any horrible actions that take place around the world that are motivated in part by an extremist Islamic ideology is a direct threat to us or something that we have to wade into. So 1 year ago, ISIS was the JV team, and they were also extremists in Islamic ideology. 1 year ago, they were extreme Islamists. Extremist Islamists, JV team. Today, they're the worst terror group on earth, but there's nothing Islamic about them. Now, this is what I mean by every day we get up, and those of us who pay attention to all this have to deal with our intelligence being wantonly, purposely insulted. Everybody knows this is an Islamic group. Anybody with half a brain knows that their roots are Islamic, their inspiration is Islamic, their motivation is Islamic because their ideology is Islamic, and Obama even admitted it last year. But something has happened between 1 year ago and today. They've moved from the JV team, the absolute worst bunch of terrorists on earth, threatening virtually everybody. But, however, they are no longer Islamic extremists. No, they're extremists in the name of Islam, and that's not Islamic extremism. But even a year ago, Obama was admitting who they were. So what changed? What has happened here? that has made Obama and his administration hell-bent on trying to tell us that this terror group has nothing to do with Islam. What is that about? I find it contradictory. I find it hypocritical. And I find that if you go back and look at this stuff from a year ago, probably we had a more honest peek. We were treated to a more honest peek of what Obama really thinks than anything we're getting now. He probably really thought they were the JV team. Remember, nobody had even heard of them. There were Islamists, they were ISIL, they were the Khorasan group. That name, by the way, was made up by the regime. And I'll tell you what drives a lot of this is Obama was running around after we killed bin Laden claiming that we had vanquished al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was not a serious threat anymore, remember? That was part of the 2012 presidential campaign. We had vanquished al-Qaeda. We had beaten al-Qaeda. Obama single-handedly killing bin Laden, got rid of al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was no longer a serious threat. Then all of a sudden this ISIS bunch pops up, starts just wreaking havoc all over the world, and all of a sudden now they can't be al-Qaeda. No, that won't work because Obama got rid of al-Qaeda. We defeated al-Qaeda. So they invented the name the Khorasan Group, and that lasted for a couple days until some researchers figured out there was no such thing. It was a totally made-up name. There was no Khorasan Group. It's a geographic region. And the Obama national security people had just in a political mind had made it up. So they were the JV team a year ago, and they were also motivated by extremist Islamic ideology. I mean, that's right on the money. But not today. And I find this all in a way fascinating if you're interested as I am in discrediting these people as often as is possible. And clearly this does it. Now there's a AP story that I don't know, I find somewhat comical simply because of the way AP has reacted to it. UN agency is investigating photos showing ISIS distributing its food. The ISIS guys have gone out and stolen a bunch of UN food, and they're distributing it, and they're getting all the benefit from it. They're made to look like the good guys, the compassionate. They're feeding the hungry, and it's UN stock. The UN's World Food Program says it's extremely concerned about images circulating on social media showing Islamic State labels affixed to its food aid boxes in Syria. It said in a statement Monday it was still trying to verify the photos, but they appear to have been taken in the northern Syrian village of Deir Hafer, which was last reached by the World Food Program on August 5th when a convoy delivered 1,700 food rations, which is enough to feed 8,500 people for a month. The World Food Program, UN, said it learned in September that ISIS members raided Red Crescent warehouses in the village where the rations may have been stored, and then they issued a statement. The World Food Program condemns this manipulation of desperately needed food aid inside Syria. What a shock, huh? What a shock. The ISIS guys stealing UN food and then distributing it and getting all the credit for compassion, love, devotion, helping the hungry and the thirsty and all that. And never mind, this is a tactic that has been used by bad guys for decades without a murmur from the media. Bad guys around the world have been stealing UN relief packages and passing them out on their own to get credit from people inside wherever the bad guys are working, to make themselves appear to be the Robin Hoods. But this time, the UN is upset, issuing statements, and the AP shocked. How could anybody be like this? Why would anybody want to deny the UN the credit here? I mean, it just, I don't know, folks. The ISIS threat is serious and it's real, and we're losing to them. We're losing to them. In part because a year ago, Obama referred to them as the JV team. We're losing to them because Obama politically can't afford for them to be seen as very serious because they are a branch of al-Qaeda, and we beat al-Qaeda. You know, we ended Al-Qaeda ceased to exist. Anyway, that's that. There's more to it. Audio soundbites as well. Lots to do on the program today. Looking forward to it all, as always, and we'll continue right after this. Don't go anywhere.
He didn't start it, but he'll be happy.
Now, there is a reason, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if you really, really are obsessed about this, and you really, 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 really want to be fair, then you might be able to make the case that we ought not call ISIL or ISIS Islamists, because some of our supposed allies in the war on terror are Islamists, like Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and so forth. But if you want to go that route, you want to bend over backwards to be fair, and you don't want to insult some of our allies. That's why the nomenclature of Islamic extremists, if you want to differentiate, because Jordan clearly is not extreme Islam, at least not in the government of King Abdullah. Saudi Arabia, now that's a different story. Saudi Arabia, I mean, they get to play both sides of this. They get to occupy the reasonable Saudis, the allied Saudis. The other side of it, Saudi Arabia is, in many places, the origin of all of this, with Wahhabi Islam and all of the imams in the mosques and so forth. So, regardless, everybody knows that the reason we're not calling it Islamist extremism has nothing to do with not offending Jordan or Saudi Arabia. There's an entirely different set of reasons why Obama and the regime don't want to call this Islamic extremism. One of the reasons is they're trying to tell everybody that we've vanquished them by vanquishing Al-Qaeda. But I mean, to me, I don't know. Sometimes I just can't help but laugh. Here, ISIS has been decapitating people, and now they are burning them alive, and the AP is outraged because they are stealing the UN's food. And that may be going too far. I understand all this other stuff happens in war, but you start stealing the UN's food and passing it out, distributing it yourself to make yourself look like a good guy when it's actually the UN. That may be going too far. Here's Fareed Zakaria. Let's jump up to soundbite 3. Fareed Zakaria, global positioning satellite, was on CNN Tonight last night. Don Lemon said, hey, the pilot that was burned alive, very prominent family in Jordan, and a murder like this, so vicious, Fareed. It's causing, it's really a global reaction out there, Fareed. Do you think it's going to end up galvanizing more people against ISIS? What kind of question is, they just burned a pilot alive on video, and the question to Fareed Zakaria, global positioning satellite, is, do you think it's going to end up galvanizing more people against it? No, why would anybody end up being more against ISIL? Because of it. Anyway, here's what Fareed Zakaria, global positioning satellite, said.
The Arab world will recognize, look, ISIS is not really about Islam or religion. This is this is a barbarous thing to do and a violation of any kind of humanity, but it's also very un-Islamic. It doesn't follow any precepts of Islam, and so they claim to be Islamic. No, they're a band of thugs.
Band of thugs. They're not Islamic. You see, that's going to be the running theme throughout all of this. They're calling themselves the Islamist state, but they're not Islamists, and they're not a state. They're just a bunch of thugs. Well, we know they're not Christians, and we know that they're not Catholics, and we know they're not Buddhists, and now they're not Islamists. What are they? Just a bunch of renegade thugs? There's a great Middle East news service out there, Memory. They post tremendous videos of scholars, anti-Islamic scholars, Muslims who are anti-militant Islamic scholars, and they've made a name for themselves, and they have posted that the ISIS guys have issued a fatwa that justifies the burning of the Jordanian pilot. ISIS has issued a fatwa that allows burning people alive, meaning if they can issue their own fatwa, then whatever they do after that's fine and dandy. As long as they say they have permission to burn people alive, they're going to do it. And nobody can say anything about it. Now, what is ISIS' stated goal? Remember now the JV team a year ago. What is ISIS' stated goal? Now keep in mind, I know what it is. I have it here. I'm going to tell you. And as I recite their stated goal to you, remember all the people like Fareed Zakaria's GPS and Barack Hussein O and Marie Harf at the State Department, all these other people saying they're not Islamists. They're simply extremists acting in the name of Islam, Mr. Limbaugh, but they're not. Now, you keep that in mind. ISIS' stated goal is to establish an Islamic caliphate and to impose Sharia law on the world. Now, if that isn't Islamic, what is? United Arab Emirates, a key U.S. ally in the ISIS effort, disengaged in December. So one of our key allies, I don't know how valuable they are, frankly, the UAE, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi. But nevertheless, they were on our side, and the United Arab Emirates, a crucial Arab ally in the American-led coalition against ISIS, suspended airstrikes against the Sunni extremist group. Whoa. Sunni extreme. What is that? Sunni is what? Sunni's Islamic, right? They're Muslims. I mean, everywhere you look, you find out that this group actually is Islamic, despite what Fareed Zakaria's GPS says or what Barack Hussein O says. So the United Arab Emirates, a crucial Arab ally in the American-led coalition against the Islamic State, ISIS, suspended airstrikes against the Sunni extremist group last December, citing fears for its pilot's safety after a Jordanian pilot was captured and who the extremists said had been burned to death. This announcement was made by U.S. officials yesterday. Funny how we're only hearing about this now. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, pulled out of the anti-ISIS effort last December after a pilot was taken prisoner by ISIS. Before the pilot was burned to death, but they cited fears for their own pilot's safety when they learned that ISIS had captured the Jordanian pilot. If you read, the story is New York Times, and if you read the whole thing, what you'll find is that the United Arab Emirates stopped flying missions against ISIS because of a lack of support from us. The UAE determined that we weren't really into this. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, yes, of the famed Dubai ports deal. Never forget that. They pulled out. They said we're no longer going to engage ISIS because of a lack of support from the United States. And there was another reason why they pulled out. We don't have search and rescue missions based in northern Iraq, which would be closer to the battlegrounds. If one of their pilots did go down, we've got no search and rescue apparatus in place. And that's thanks to Obama. We don't have any forces in northern Iraq. Only ISIS does. So, I mean, it doesn't appear there's any stopping them. There's a bunch of people issuing harsh words against ISIS and condemning their actions, such as burning the pilot on video and all the beheadings. But that is about it. Back to the audio soundbite. Says Jake Tapper on CNN's newsroom yesterday. Brooke Baldwin speaking with the Washington correspondent Jake Tapper about ISIS burning to death the Jordanian pilot. And she said, "You've been in touch with senior regime officials, your sources there. What are they telling you, Jacob?"
The victim was a Muslim and was killed in not just a very horrifying way, but a very un-Islamic way. It is contrary to Islam to burn a body alive or dead. So to do this, they believe this is going to help get Jordan even more committed to the cause of fighting ISIS.
That's interesting. Okay, so the victim was Muslim, the pilot. He was killed in not just a very horrifying way, but a very un-Islamic way, see? There's not anything to see here, folks. There's no Islamism to see here, nothing at all whatsoever, because the way this guy was killed, that doesn't happen. It's contrary to Islam to burn a body, dead or alive. Can I ask a question? How do you think people die in bombings? Now, you got an IED. You have any mortar attacks, bomb attacks that ISIS, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, any number of Islamic terror groups, they launch bomb attacks. And in those bomb attacks, there are explosions. And as part of explosion, there's what? A fire. And in an explosion, a lot of people die for different reasons. There's the concussive shock. There is, the explosion, the force and all that can just dismember it. Shrapnel, any number of things, but there's this fire in there. I've seen it. I've seen my share of explosions. I've watched them on TV, certainly. I've seen explosions out there. And there are, remember when Ford blew up their truck? Or no, NBC blew up GM's truck. Whatever it was, my point is there's fire in Islamic bomb attacks, and yet we're being told here that, well, by the way, what happened in 9/11? Had the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and they were bombed, and what brought down the World Trade Center? Was it not fire? It resulted, well, we sure as hell did. We saw the smoke. We saw the flames. The point is that we have just been told that it's very un-Islamic to burn people. And yet 3,000 people, some of the 3,000 people were burned. Some of them chose not to be. They jumped out of top floor windows. What do you mean George W. Bush did that? No. The Jews did that. If you're going to start getting a conspiracy, George Bush didn't do it. George Bush knew about it, but the Jews did it. I better issue it. That's not, folks, this is some of the crazy conspiracy theories. By the way, speaking of conspiracy theories, they are growing. Okay. All right. So 3,000 people, there was a fire. There were 3 fires. The Pentagon, World Trade Center, there are fires in Iraq. But Jake Tapper just told us very un-Islamic to burn bodies, dead or alive. This is what I mean about every day having our intelligence insulted here. What is it about this? What is it that's forcing all of these people to just, come close to making fools of themselves in telling us this group is not who and what it is? Who are they trying to protect? Now, obviously, you're going to answer Obama. But, okay, if you answer Obama to the question, who are they trying to protect, why? What in the world? Why does he need to be protected here? Why can this group not be Muslim? Why can this group not be seen as Islamic? Because somehow that's going to damage Obama. Would somebody explain this to me? What other reason could there be? Well, there could be a number of other reasons. I'm not professing ignorance here. There's fear. There's any number of reasons, but people have been bending over backwards ever since this terrorism began to say it has nothing to do with Islam and nothing to do with that's it. Just some days, folks, it's just tough to take all this. There's Christiana Manpour. I mentioned this earlier on CNN's New Day Today with Alison Camerata. She said, you recently interviewed a man who was taken hostage by ISIS. What did he share about their motivation now?
He has said a couple of things. A, they're very violent, and he used the word psychopathic. These people have come from criminal backgrounds in the West, but he also said, importantly, this had nothing to do with Islam. They never talked about Islam. They never talked about the Quran. They never tried to persuade them that this was about some kind of Islam. He said this was very, very political. Why are you killing Muslims? We're going to kill you. We hate the West. We hate democracy. That's what was going on amongst this group of jihadis. So I think that was, quite an important revelation into their motivation.
Well, okay. So you see, it just the effort to tell us what we don't know that we do know is ongoing. Now, here's a prisoner who escapes. First point he made. Now stop and think of this. Here's Christiana Manpour. She somehow finds a recently escaped prisoner from the first thing the guy said. They're not Islamists. I didn't hear one word about the Quran. I didn't hear one word about Islam. They're not. They're criminal thugs from the West. The West means us. The West means the UK, Western Europe, and the United States. That's where these guys are from? Who knew? But remember what their fatwa is, their stated goal. The establishment of an Islamic caliphate and imposing Sharia law in the world. By the way, burning a body is not... What did Jake Tapper... Yes. Contrary to Islam, to burn a body, dead or alive. It's not to behead. Beheading, decapitating people is Islamic. Did that offend you, by the way? I'm just asking, those of you, does it offend you to say that? Because they still do it practically every day in Saudi Arabia. And, you know, all you have to do to be beheaded in Saudi Arabia is to criticize the king. All you have to do is be overheard criticizing the royal family, and if somebody rats you out, they will find you, and they will behead you in public. And Saudi citizens show up and cheer. That's why, I mean, Saudi Arabia gets to play both sides of the line on this. It can ruin your day. But okay, so burning bodies is not Islamic, but beheading, clearly, is. Saudi Arabia beheaded 2 convicted rapists and murderers on Wednesday. You heard burning bodies is what? Disfigurement, and that it could be. That's what I mean. People are going to real great lengths here to try to get us to believe disbelieve what we already know. But Saudi Arabia, the yearly total now, beheadings, 2015 is 21. There have been 21 beheadings in Saudi Arabia just for this year. This new king that's got dementia has been beheading people like mad. In fact, one guy, remember this? One guy was not beheaded. He was going to get 1,000 lashes with the whip for doing something, creating some offense. After the first 50, they had to send him to the hospital. He was in such bad shape he couldn't withstand anymore. So they sent him to the hospital to get him well so he could withstand the next 50 because it had to be punishment. And they suspended the lashing when King Abdullah died. They installed a new king, sort of a goodwill gesture, a break in the lashing. But they're gonna keep him alive long enough that he experiences all 1,000 lashes. Anyway, the official broadcast clock tells me I have to.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh.
Here's Rich in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Rich, great to have you on the program. Hello, sir.
Hello, Rush. Honor to be with you. First time ever. Rush, I watched the video last night. 22 minutes long. Have you seen it yet?
Honestly, have not. You're talking about the burning alive of the pilot?
Well, it is available if you Google.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I haven't. I was trying to fix my Today widget in the TV app.
Well, Rush, I have to tell you, more than even the horrific seeing the pilot being burned, which is at the end of the video, this video is the special effects, the state-of-the-art technology. It's unbelievable. These guys are at war with us. The video starts out, it has about 15 minutes of the pilot in the orange jumpsuit, and you know they like to use the orange jumpsuit because that's what we used in Abu Ghraib, sitting down at a table and talking about all the, quote, war crimes that he committed as an F-16 pilot. They make him describe his flight from Jordan to when it came down. It's full of clips. The first minute must have 30
So
clips.
what's your takeaway from all this high tech?
Well, here's the thing. Do you remember not too long ago they were showing beheadings all the time, and then they said, you know what, we're not going to show the beheadings on YouTube because it's given us some bad public relations. So you didn't see them for a while. Well, what I'm saying is ISIS has ramped up the horror, and they're putting it in our face.
It's not just that they've ramped up the horror, and they are using it to recruit, and they are at war with, and look, the high-tech characteristics. I've heard about the high-tech capability they've got. This is not a bunch of ragtag neighborhood thugs.
You're listening to